Hello. Today I'm reading chapter 7 from The Path of the Righteous Gentile, Rule 4 of the Noahide Laws. I'm also playing the fourth chakra, the Heart Chakra frequency. You can hopefully hear that while I read this out loud here. Alright, so chapter 7, Murder. The commandment prohibiting murder is explicitly stated to Noah by God. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for he made man in the image of God. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. Noahide who kills a human being, even a baby in the womb of its mother, receives the death penalty. This means that one who strikes a pregnant woman, thereby killing the fetus, incurs the death penalty. The act must have been done at least 40 days after conception. Before 40 days, the act is in the category of destruction of man's seed. For this, a transgressor is liable for punishment from heaven, but not by a court of law on earth. Men and women have an equal responsibility to observe the prohibition against murder, and any act for which a man is held liable, a woman is equally held liable. If a person kills someone who is terminally ill, or is falling from the top of a cliff, or is certain to die momentarily for any other reason, he nevertheless transgresses the prohibition against murder and is liable for punishment by the courts. This ruling places the idea of mercy killing or euthanasia squarely in the category of murder. If one pushes a person onto railway tracks and a train subsequently comes and kills him, or if one leaves a person in a situation where he will surely starve to death, although the action only indirectly causes the person's death, it is murder and the act is punishable by the courts. If a person sees someone pursuing another for the obvious or suspected intent of committing murder, or with the intent of causing the pursued to commit a sin, and the observer is able to stop the pursuer by wounding him, but kills him instead, he transgresses this commandment and receives the death penalty. If, however, a person himself is being pursued, he is free to take any action necessary to save his own life. Authorities disagree as to whether it is permissible for a Noahide to kill a fetus in order to save the life of the mother, but all agree that taking the mother's life to save the fetus is murder and punishable by the courts. If a Noahide kills someone through a messenger, both the messenger and the person who sent him are liable for punishment as murderers. A person is commanded to allow himself to be killed rather than kill. This means that if people try to compel a person on pain of death to kill someone, he must not commit murder regardless of the consequences. Suicide is forbidden under the 7 universal laws. There is no place of legal refuge for a murderer. Any relative on the father's side of a murder victim who can legally inherit property of the deceased may designate himself a blood avenger. If the murder was committed intentionally with malice aforethought, it is the blood avenger's obligation to see that the murderer is brought to trial. If the killing was manslaughter, that is, if the killer acted unintentionally but negligently, and it is a matter of a Gershov, killing another Gershov, the killer flees to a designated city of refuge until his trial comes up. If the courts rule that he was guilty of killing, but did so unintentionally, he must return to the city of refuge and reside there until the high priest of the Jews dies. Then he is free to return to his home. If he leaves the city of refuge prior to the death of the high priest, the blood avenger may find him and kill him. The blood avenger is held harmless for killing the manslaughterer. If a Gershov kills an Israelite unintentionally but negligently, or if he kills another Gershov because he thought that it was permissible, he is liable for the death penalty. If a Noahide who does not observe the 7 universal commandments kills another Noahide in a circumstance of manslaughter, he is subject to the death penalty, and the city of refuge affords him no protection. In a case where a blood avenger kills the manslaughterer, and the relative of the slain manslaughterer seeks revenge against the blood avenger and kills him, that relative is deemed a murderer and is prosecuted as such. There is a difference of opinion as to whether the 7 universal commandments include a commandment forbidding the willful destruction of a man's seed through masturbation or any other act of wasting semen. All agree, however, that sexual relations with a woman who is incapable of bearing children is not considered wasting semen. One opinion is that the commandment to be fruitful and multiply, having been given to Noah, but not repeated to Moses, was in force only during those generations before the historical event on Mount Sinai. In those earlier times, wasting semen was considered among the most heinous of sins and a chief reason that God brought the flood to destroy the world. The Torah clearly states that Judah's 2 sons, Er and Onan, were slain by God because the thing which Onan did was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis chapter 38, verse 10. However, this event took place prior to the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. This opinion concludes that since the commandment against wasting seed was not repeated by Moses on Mount Sinai, it was no longer in effect as part of the 7 universal commandments. The other opinion states that despite the fact that it was not repeated on Mount Sinai, since it was originally included in the 7 universal commandments, a man is forbidden to willfully destroy his seed through the act, though the act is not punishable by the courts. After a man has fulfilled his basic obligation of bringing a son and a daughter into the world, if he wishes then to use contraceptive devices, he should use a type that does not act directly on the semen. According to this viewpoint, masturbation is strictly forbidden. In spiritual terms, the reason for the great concern and strictness concerning the wasting of a man's seed is that it is considered the willful destruction of his life-giving force and equated with life itself. Therefore, the destruction of a man's seed is related closely to murder, even more to the murder of one's own children.